the rights of patients.
Okay.
Yeah, the main things I didn't know, like patients had the right to, and now I know about these things.
Okay. Okay. So that's fabulous. So, are you a student? Are you a practitioner? What do you do?
No, no, I'm a serving corps member right now.
Okay. Oh, nice. Copper we.
You are.
Nice. I like that. Okay. So, what did you study?
I studied biochemistry.
Oh, nice. See why she went into health tech. Yes. Nice.
Yes,
Now that's really wise. That's really wise. So
yes.
nice having you on this class this on the class this evening. Let me see who else we have here. Okay, I think I saw Kylio Victoria. Hello, good evening.
Good evening,
Hello,
sir.
good evening, Kylio. How's your day been?
Very fine, thank you, sir.
Thank you. She has very soothing, calm voice. It means you've been sleeping or something.
No, no, that's how my voice is.
Okay, do you sing soprano?
Yes.
Because you see that. Nice to have you in class today. Hello, Ifunaya Adinkai. I hope I got it. Adikasieme. I hope I got that correctly.
No, sir. Good evening, sir.
Please help me if I murder your name. Pronounce it properly, please.
It's JIIPCCMIP.
Adikasieme Abadie. Abadie.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Adikasieme, where are you from, actually?
I'm from Imo State.
Oh, okay. Adikasieme actually has is giving the Aqua Cross vibe.
Oh, no.
Okay. So thanks to everyone who is in class today. So we're quickly going straight on into this session for today. My name is Goslav Kamaloni, and I will be your moderator for today. It's really amazing having us on in class today. I can see our moderator is already in class, and we're going right into the session. It's been health tech and law for the past 2 weeks. This is week 3, and we know that we're going to learn something superb and amazing. And I know that we're all ready to delve deeper into the realm of health tech and law. Okay, so before we go further, I will just take a few announcements and also know some things I think we should be privy to already. Okay, first off, do not forget that the next quarter for Gypsy will be starting off in 2024. Gypsy is always willing to serve, moving forward and forward. Even for this quarter, you can also tell people who are interested in joining the quarter. It's week 3, but I think we could still be taking on intakes for the week. So you could also tell people who are interested. If not, the next quarter starting up in January next year, they can start sending in registrations via the link and be ready to learn some amazing things. We have fully online courses on IP, that's intellectual property, as well sorry, we have IP, intellectual property, we have artificial intelligence and technology, we have the energy sector. Oh God, so sorry. I was saying, okay, thank you. It's bigger now. The fintech industry, health tech and law, the class we're having for this session, patent drafting, blockchain, NFT and metaverse, data privacy and protection, and of course, one of the newest ones, entertainment, business, and law. These are all amazing programs in the Gypsy Mentorship Apprenticeship Program. So anyone could register and also learn. Do not also forget we have the 30 minutes one-on-one with your favorite Gypsy mentor. I don't know if we're making good use of that, but I really encourage us to make good use of it because it's a one-on-one time to get to know your mentor better. They get to know you better. You get to communicate better. And I think you do a whole lot and you learn practical approach to what you've learned, the theoretical aspect of. Okay, so let's move into today's class. It's a man who we have known already. From my knowledge, he's been doing an amazing job. He's been giving amazing teachings in this particular program. I'm talking about Mr. Ebenezer Egwatu Esquire. So briefly on his profile, Ebenezer C. Egwatu is a legal practitioner, medical law consultant, certified mediator rather, and a passionate patent and patients' rights and safety advocate. He's the principal partner, Law Founds Multidisciplinary Consult, a firm that provides innovative legal insights and cutting-edge solutions located in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. He is also the founder and executive director of Lawyers Arise for the People's Initiative, that's LAPI, a patients' rights and safety advocate NGO. He is a trained medical care assessor by International Medical Law Center, St. Kitts, North America. He's a member of Nigerian Bar Association, that's the NBA, a member of the Medical Law Practitioners Association of Nigeria, that's MELPAN, member Institute of Medical and Health Law, IMHL, and a member World Association for Medical Law, WAML. He currently serves as the chairman, Medical Law Committee, Nigerian Bar Association, Garki Branch, Abuja. The chairperson, Ad hoc Training Committee, Institute of Medical and Health Law, and the legal team lead for Make Our Hospital Work, MOHW campaign, a citizen-led community-based advocacy to improve the quality of healthcare services in hospitals and primary healthcare facilities across Nigeria. He trains doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals on patients' rights and avoiding medical negligence. He is an avid reader, a researcher, and loves to serve God by serving humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, with that fabulous read of an amazing profile, our mentor for today is the amazing Mr. Ebenezer Egwatu. Nice having you with us this evening, sir. It's really a pleasure. And now I've started with through one of your sessions, and you're simply amazing. It's really nice having you with us this evening. Hope you had a great day, sir. Is a mentor with us? Okay, so while we wait to hear from him, okay, sir, you're muted though. You're muted. You're muted, sir.
No, sorry. Oh, I was talking to myself. Sorry about that. Okay,
It's very
good evening,
fine, sir.
everyone.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
How was our week? How was the previous week? So let me say Happy New Week to all of us. How many of us are excited to be in class today? Let me see it in the comment section. If you are excited to be in class, let me see it. Then tell me what your expectation is on the comment section. If you are excited to be in class, you have a right not to be excited. So we can also know what the problem is and see how we can come in to get you excited. So
okay,
how
sir,
many of you are excited to be in class?
So, sir, before
if you are not excited, let us know. Only one person is excited. Brian is excited. Okay, Brian is telling us he wants to learn everything as possible. Okay. Okay. Let me also try and open this.
Okay, sir.
Sorry, let me also try and open this on my laptop.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Your comments. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Before you go into
ahead, I can hear you.
Okay, before I go into your opening for today, I think we'd love to hear from the mentees on their presentation. So you just flow from their presentation. Is that fine, sir?
Yes, it is, but I've not gotten to that. I want to know whether they are excited first. They will open the session as usual. Then I take I want to engage with them. I gave an assignment last week and only one person thought it's important to do and submit my assignments. Wow. Why was it so? So I'm trying to open the link here too. Only one person did my assignment, Esther, right? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir, we
Please
can hear you.
Hello,
confirm
sir.
if you
Yes, we
can
can hear
hear
you.
me so that
Yes,
I
we can
know
hear you
I am
loud
not
and
talking
clear.
to myself.
So we can hear you, sir, loud and clear. Just
Okay,
one person did your
awesome.
assignment.
Only one person did my assignment. The rest didn't see the need to do my assignments. Okay, as the moderator said, before we go into our session for today, I would like to hear the presentation, what you have for today. You already know the drill. You do your presentation, I come and make necessary corrections and inputs. So let us roll. Who is the presenter for today? Can you hear me? Sorry, my system went off and back. I don't know what the challenge is. Can you hear me? Please confirm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know I can hear
Okay,
you. I can hear
let's
you.
have the presenter for today.
Okay, so can I presenter today please take over? Please, who is presenting? The floor is yours, please.
Who is presenting, please?
Adikasieme, would that be you?
Hello? What's the problem?
Okay, for now, sir, while we wait for that, I think
There is
we
silence
can go
in
on with
class.
class
Who is
because
presenting?
please, all mentees, can we kindly unmute if we're in quiet places to actually let's get to communicate, please, so we can know we're here with some people.
Okay, sir.
Please, mentees, let's kindly engage. Our mentor is here and we're not having any response. Please, who is meant to handle presentation for today's class?
I'm actually the backup presenter. I'm not sure.
Okay,
who's
so
the
okay,
actual
okay, Jane,
presenter.
please carry
Who
on.
is the
Carry on.
backup presenter?
Please, Jane,
Okay,
carry
me.
on.
Okay, let me
Thank you.
share
Carry
my
on, please.
screen.
Thank you so much.
I can't hear anything.
I'm trying
Hello,
to share
Jane.
my screen, sir. I'm trying to share my
Okay.
screen.
Okay.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. Hello, sir. I can't hear you.
Yes.
I'm trying to.
I can't see your screen. I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Okay, if you're having issues sharing your screen, let me help you share the screen.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, okay, let me do that now.
Okay, Jane, while they're sharing, please, you can carry on, please, so we can save more time. Okay, that's it now.
Okay. I was trying to share, but it's saying the file format is not supported, so I'll use this one here.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. All right, our topic today is healthcare fraud and abuse, medical malpractice, patient rights, and evidence gathering. Oh, this slide is actually different from the one I have. Okay. Fraud and malpractice, it can be found in every sector, and it is it's very important to identify it in the health sector because the health sector deals directly with lives. Fraud, as we all know, is an intentionally deceptive act designated to provide the perpetrator with an unlawful gain to deny the right of the victim of the act. So fraud there will be a perpetrator who does it on purpose to deprive someone else of his or her right to gain something from it. The next slide, please. Healthcare fraud is broadly defined as any deliberate and dishonest act committed with the knowledge that it could result in an unauthorized benefit to the person committing the act or another party, likewise, not entitled to that benefit. It includes the actions that are defined as fraud under federal or state law. Okay, types of healthcare fraud and abuse. For healthcare fraud, we have billing for services not actually performed. This happens when healthcare personnel add cost of things or procedures that were not performed, of treatment they did not give to the patient so that the patient can pay more than he or she is supposed to pay. Then upcoding or billing for more expensive treatments that were not actually performed. It's just similar to the first one when they try to increase the prices of the treatments of the patient, of which those things were not done. Then unbundling or billing each stage as if it were a separate procedure. So for a particular procedure they just try to divide it into many parts so that it seems that they did more than they actually did. Then falsifying a patient diagnosis to justify procedures that are not medically necessary. This happens when the healthcare personnel they bring diagnoses that were not supposed to be there and treatments that were not needed just so that the patients can pay more. Then accepting kickbacks for patient referrals. This happens when it can be seen in some like government hospitals where medical personnel have their own private establishment. They try to get the person in charge of the treatment to refer the patient to their own establishment, even when it is not needed. Then waiving patients' co-pays or deduction or overbilling the insurance carrier. This happens with patients who have insurances. When since the patient is working on insurance, they try to overcharge those insurance or try to avoid things like waivers which the patients have so that the patients can actually pay more. Then healthcare abuse includes patients neglect. This is when healthcare professionals fail to put their attention on the patient that actually needs it. This can lead to more problems or death of the patient. Then intentionally withholding physical food from the patients. Then the next one is physically striking a patient. This is when a medical personnel physically abuses a patient for any reason at all. Then sexually assaulting a patient when a healthcare professional sexually takes advantage of a patient, that's abuse. Then this is blocking me. Intentionally withholding medical attention to the patient. This is very similar to neglecting the patient. Then intentionally withholding physical care. Then ways to prevent healthcare fraud and abuse. The first one is validation of identity of members prior to rendering services. The identity of the patient and the healthcare the patient and the healthcare professional should be identified. This can be evidence for if there's any problem in the future, and it will even help to avoid the whole thing from happening. Then the next one is ensuring accuracy when submitting bills or claims for service rendered. This has to do with receipts and then documents of confirmation for treatments or diagnosis or anything like that. The next one is submission of appropriate referral and treatment forms. These are also important because they help things to go properly and can also serve as evidence. Okay, someone's hands are up. I cannot see the screen again.
Sorry, please let me share my screen. I have the edited presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, who's Brian? Hello, Brian. Okay. I don't share your screen.
Yes, I want to do it now.
Okay.
Sorry, it seems like there was a mistake in the file or the document I was sharing, and someone was saying that they want to help share the screen.
Okay, okay.
Brian, you can go ahead and share the screen.
Then, Jane, please, if you have a copy of the main slide on your phone, kindly open it and continue from your end so that we could just keep moving while he tries to share that from his end. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, your Zoom can still be on while you're on.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Your document app. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, the second way to prevent healthcare fraud and abuse is ensuring accuracy when submitting bills or claims for service rendered. This has to do with receipts and documents for confirmation of payment. They should be accurate. Then submission of appropriate referral and treatment forms. The next one is avoidance of unnecessary drug prescriptions and medical treatments. When the healthcare personnel give unnecessary treatments or prescriptions, this gives opportunity for more fraud, and in fact it's fraud and abuse. Then report lost or stolen prescription pads and or fraudulent prescription when noticed. This can serve as evidence in the future. Then report every suspicion to the necessary bodies established to receive complaints in the health institution. So every health institution should have a body that is in charge of complaints, and they should always attend to people who report to them. Then using Q&A to patients and workers in the health institution in order to get feedback. This is very important because the patients, they need to express themselves on how treatment with them worked, how they were treated, how, if they have any concerns, anything they want to be modified. Likewise, the healthcare workers. This will help the administrators know what is actually happening in the hospital and try to prevent anything that could lead to problems. Then the next one is effectively execute the legislation set to control healthcare fraud and abuse. Then medical malpractice. This can be defined as dereliction of professional duty or failure to exercise an ordinary degree of professional skill or learning by one, rendering professional service which results in injury, loss, or damage. This is mostly on the physician side, the medical professional side. So medical malpractice is a legal cause of action that occurs when a medical or healthcare professional, through a negligent act or omission, deviates from standards in their profession, thereby causing injury or harm to the patient. So we know what malpractice is. So this is malpractice in the medical field. Then it can also be seen as deliberate intention to act below the required standard in the profession and causing harm to the patient. Okay, it's showing now. I think I'll use mine. Types of medical malpractice. There are 4 main types of medical malpractice. The first one is diagnostic errors, which is misdiagnosis or failure to diagnose. This occurs when the patient is wrongly diagnosed, when whoever is in charge of diagnosis makes mistakes. Mistakes can occur when specimens are they are like exchanged, then the result for someone else be sent to someone else. This is medical malpractice because it can cause harm to the patient when he or she is treated for what they do not have. Then the second one is surgical errors. This occurs when physicians perform the wrong surgical procedure on somebody, or they forget surgical instruments inside the patient. Then this one also includes when there's problem with sterilizing equipment and stuff like that. Then the third one is medication errors, when the wrong medication is prescribed or when the wrong dose is prescribed. That's why patients should give appropriate information like their weight and if they were on previous medications and stuff like that. Then the next one is birth injuries, oxygen deprivation or injuries to the mother or child during childbirth. Medical malpractice can also include when the medical personnel fail to obtain informed consent from the patient. They should always get informed consent from the patient, tell the patient everything about the treatments and make sure they totally agree to it to avoid problems in the future. Because when the patient is aware, they can also give their own side. They can talk about things they're allergic to or things that they cannot actually bear. Then next one is failure to follow up with patients, and then failure to monitor patient after treatment. After treatment, it's the job of the medical personnel to still check up on the patient to make sure that the treatment is working or actually worked, so that if there's any problem, they can handle it before things get out of hand. Then the elements of medical malpractice. To establish medical malpractice, 4 elements must be proven. The first one is duty. The healthcare professional must have a duty to provide care that meets the accepted standards of care. There must be a duty. That is the healthcare professional. This is what you're supposed to do in the standard form of that care that you're giving. Then the second one is the breach of that duty. The healthcare professional must have breached that duty by failing to meet the accepted standard of care. Then the third one is causation. That means that breach of duty has harmed the patient in one way or the other. Then damages. The patient must have suffered physical or emotional injury, financial loss, or any form of damage. Then legal cases on medical malpractice. Then the first one is Olusegun Falana versus Olasore Arutile Hospital. This case involved a patient who was mistakenly diagnosed with malaria and died after receiving the wrong medication. The patient's family sued the hospital, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The court found that the hospital was liable for negligence and awarded the family damages. Then the next one is John Nduka versus University College Hospital. In this case, a patient was misdiagnosed with tuberculosis and died after being given the wrong medication. The patient's family sued the hospital and won, with the court findings that the hospital had been negligent. Madu versus LMC Medical Center. This case involved a patient who was diagnosed with a tumor but did not receive the appropriate treatment. As a result, the tumor continued to grow and cause serious harm to the patient. The patient sued the hospital for medical malpractice, and the court found that the hospital was liable for the patient's injuries. So in this case, we can see negligence, and the medical personnel did not follow up with the patient. Then the next one is patient rights. So first, defining a patient. A patient is anyone who has requested to be evaluated by or who is being evaluated by any healthcare professional. Patient rights are those basic rules of conduct between patients and medical caregivers, as well as the institution and people that support them. Examples of patient rights. The first one, a patient has the right to respectful care given by competent workers. A patient has the right to know the names and the job of his or her caregiver. A patient has the right to privacy with respect to his or her medical condition. A patient's care and treatment will be discussed only with those who need to know. A patient has the right to have his or her medical records treated as confidential and read only by people with a need to know. Information about a patient will be released only with permission from the patient or as required by the law. A patient has the right to care without regard to race, color, religion, disability, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, or source of payment. A patient has the right to know what facility rules and regulation apply to his or her conduct as a patient. A patient has the right to have emergency procedures done without unnecessary delay. A patient also has the right to good quality care and high professional standards that are continually maintained and reviewed. A patient has the right to make informed decisions regarding his or her care and has the right to include family members in those decisions. A patient has the right to informed consent. A patient has the right to information from his or her doctor in order to make informed decisions about his or her care. This means that patients will be given information about their diagnosis, prognosis, and different treatment choices. This information will be given in terms that the patient can understand. This may not be possible in an emergency or when the patient cannot make sane decisions. Then regulations guiding patients' rights. The first one, Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. This is the number one law which makes provision of the fundamental human right. It provides the right to life, right to dignity of human person, and right to avoid discrimination and many other rights applicable to the patient. Then Patient's Bill of Rights. This is the body of law created to safeguard patient rights in the country, some of which are right to informed consent, right to refuse treatment, and right to emergency services. The third one is the Federal Competitions and Consumer Protection Act, 2018. This regulates the sale of products and services to ensure they are not defective and do not have negative effects on consumers. Sales of fake drugs and other medical materials is prohibited. This also involves false advertisement. The next one is the National Health Insurance Authority. This act protects patients when insuring their health. It regulates health insurance in Nigeria. Then another case was stated here in the Quinlan case. Young Karen Quinlan suffered severe brain damage as a result of anoxia and entered a persistent vegetable state. Karen's father sought judicial approval to disconnect the daughter's respirator. The New Jersey Supreme Court granted the relief, holding that Karen has a right to privacy grounded in the federal constitution to terminate treatment, recognized that this right was not absolute. However, the court balanced it against asserted state interests, noting that the state interest weakens and the individual's right to privacy grows as the degree of bodily invasion increases and the prognosis dims. The court concluded that state interests had to give way in that case. The court also concluded that the only practical way to prevent the loss of Karen's privacy rights due to her incompetence was to allow her guardian and family to decide whether she would exercise it in these circumstances. And the next subhead is evidence gathering in healthcare cases. So first, we define evidence as information, facts, data, or proof that is presented to support a claim, argument, or assertion. It serves as a basis for establishing the truth or validity of something. So evidences have been used in legal proceedings, scientific research, decision making, and
Hello, Jane.
generally.
Kindly begin to round off, please. Kindly
Okay.
begin to round off, please. Thank you.
Okay, medical evidences refer to information, data, or document that is used in the healthcare field to support clinical decisions, research, diagnosis, treatment, and legal case. It is based on medical observation, scientific research, and documentation of the patient's health issues. So in the medical field, evidences can take the form of medical records, imaging, laboratory test results, an expert testimony, research studies, and documentation of patient's consent. So in conclusion, healthcare fraud and abuse, medical malpractice, patient rights, and evidence gathering are common topics in the healthcare sector. Healthcare fraud is part of healthcare abuse, but abuse can come in different ways. Fraud, which includes pretending to render medical service that are not required in order to extort money from patients, doubling bills, etc. Healthcare abuse can be verbal and physical, and these are usual in the maternity ward. Medical malpractice is deliberate act of a medical practitioner to act outside the required standard in the profession, which could cause harm to the patient. Patients should understand that they have fundamental entitlement and protection rights when seeking or receiving healthcare services. They are legally protected entitlements called the patient rights. Therefore, legislation guiding the action of medical practitioners must be effectively executed in order to curb these crimes in the healthcare sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you so much for stepping in on behalf of the presenter for today. You did a fantastic job. That was really thoroughly done. Thank you so much. So, due to time, we have to move forward straight on to our mentor. That's the amazing Ebenezer Iguatu, for him to give us his opening statement, his take on today's topic, and as well give us his view and
Okay.
review on the presentation. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Okay. This is awesome. This is awesome. I commend the depth of research. This is probably the best that this your set has produced in terms of depth of research and presentation. So you guys need to applaud yourselves. Who worked on this? I know it's a group work. I'm also aware that when group works are given, it's usually a few people that do it. Who did the research?
So we all did it together. We delegated subtopics to everybody, and everybody researched on their own
Awesome.
subtopic. Then we
Awesome.
compiled it. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Then I also commend your slides. You took seriously the observations I made last week in terms of your slides and the pictures. As you can see today, the pictures are faded in the slides and they are not conflicting with the characters or the wordings, and everything came out beautiful. Okay, having said that, let me just bring in few comments to further enrich your presentation. So let's look at your definition of medical malpractice. It is apt. It is basically failure. When we talk, okay, let's start from medical fraud. Let's start from fraud. Fraud is the deliberate, we all know what fraud is, but putting it in the context of medical practice or healthcare service delivery. So we can say that fraud is deliberate and dishonest, and are also deceptive. These words are chosen carefully. You don't commit fraud by accident. It is deliberate, it is deceptive, and it is honest act of a healthcare service provider to rip off the patient financially and have illegal material or monetary gain to himself from the patient, whom we might refer to here now as a victim of healthcare fraud. The examples you gave are apt, and there are many more. I think it was last year, one of the sessions last year, I shared a story of a young doctor who was employed in a particular hospital, a private hospital, and patients will come and he will examine them. And when he examines them, he finds out that there is really nothing seriously wrong with them. So he treats them and prescribes the right medication they need. In fact, in some cases, he will just say, Madam Morga, give yourself quality rest. He could prescribe change in diet, and the person goes home. So his employer, the doctor, came to him and said, no, if you continue like this, you won't get money. It's from these people that I get money to pay your salary. When they come, give them bed, book them, put them, administer drip on them, give them injection. That way they will bring out money. And the young man refused to do it. And that kept on causing friction between him and his employer. And he eventually left the hospital. And some months later, he got another employment with a government hospital. Now, this is just an example of one case of healthcare fraud. It comes in different ways: prescription of drugs that shouldn't be prescribed, that are not even needed by the patients, the doctor prescribed. In some cases, it's as worse as having a surgery, a surgical procedure that shouldn't be embarked on in the first place. The doctor says you need to have a surgery, you need to, just minor thing that medication or even diet change could have taken care of. The doctor says it has to be surgery. Now, that is healthcare fraud because the patient is not educated in that field. I told us last week that the relationship between the doctor and the patient is a fiduciary relationship. So the patient to 95% of the time depends on the decisions to be made by the doctor. So that makes the patient a victim of healthcare fraud. You have cases where even in billing, now one of the rights a patient has is transparent billing. What does it mean? It means that as the patient's bill is accumulating, the patient is being informed on time so that the patient follows the bill. For example, a patient comes for surgery and that he's told that the surgery will cost, let's say, 100,000 naira. Now, if there are consumables to be used or there is a particular injection that is different from the surgery fee, the patient is informed this injection will cost 10,000 naira. So the patient knows that his bill is 110,000 naira. As the patient is being treated and the bill is accumulating, the patient is being informed. There is transparency in the billing such that at the end of the day, when the bill is computed and given to the patient is not surprised or alarmed. Why? How come you are giving me a bill of 1 million naira? The patient followed through as to how the bill was generated and accumulated to 1 million naira. But in some cases, particularly private hospitals, you have situations where patients just are admitted and they keep receiving treatments. At the end of the day, the patient is slammed with a bill that he or she cannot pay. Your bill is 3.5 million. The patient is wondering, how did this bill get to this? So when we talk about rights to transparent billing, it is trying to cure healthcare fraud as it relates to billing. That's why that right is included in patient's bill of rights. Now, you talk about abuse. Healthcare abuse, you can have physical abuse, you can have emotional abuse. Physical is where it comes, physical, touch, hitting, even verbal abuse is there too. Now, most patients who suffer physical abuse are the elderly one, the pregnant women too, even children suffer physical abuse. Now, it is a crime to abuse a patient, either physically or verbally or otherwise. Why? Because the patient has a right to dignified care. He has a right to the respect of his person as a patient. Even under our 1999 Constitution as amended, one of the fundamental human rights is right to dignity of the person. So if a patient is a human being and a Nigerian, that constitutional provision applies to that patient. But apart from being a constitutional right, it is also a patient's right known as the right to quality or dignified care, right to dignified care. So that takes care of patient's abuse. Then we talk of patient's rights. I like your definition of patient's rights. However, that definition is more or less descriptional. Let me get it. Patient's rights. Sorry. Okay, let me take your, you see, Patients' rights are those basic rules of conduct between patients and caregivers, as well as the institution and people that support them. Get that clearly. Patients' rights are those basic rules of conduct between patients and medical caregivers. So that's correct. As well as the institution and people that support them, okay? Patients' rights, is the general statement adopted by most healthcare professionals, covering such matters as access to care, patient dignity, confidentiality, and consent to treatment. Now, you will agree with me that this definition is somehow descriptive. And that is what you find out. 80 to 90% of the attempts to define patients' rights by professionals have come up with this description. In some cases, you will see things like just a listing. Patients' rights are right to consent, right to refusal of treatment, right to information. But that is not a definition of patients' rights. So over the years, in the course of trying to fill that definition gap, I came up with this definition that patients' rights are those rights that guarantee professional, quality, transparent, and safe care delivery to a patient, as well as respect for the dignity of the person of the patient by healthcare professionals while providing healthcare service to a patient. Now, I'm going to break it down. Patients' rights are those rights that guarantee professional. What it means is that the healthcare service being received by a patient has to be professional, has to be delivered not by a quack doctor, a quack nurse, a quack lab scientist, a quack healthcare personnel. No, it has to be delivered by a professional. Now, that same healthcare service has to be qualitative. So the patient's rights are those rights. Now, the right has to guarantee professional 1, qualitative 2, transparent 3, and the safe healthcare service delivery. If the service, everything we talk about, if the service is not professional, if the service is not safe or qualitative, if the service is not transparent, there is a tendency that there is an abuse of patients' rights along that trajectory. Do you understand me? Then the definition doesn't stop there. We talked about as well as respect for the dignity of the person of the patient. So if you deliver a professional, a quality, a transparent, and a safe healthcare service and disrespect the dignity of the person of the patient, you are abusing the rights of that patient. Do we understand this? I said that the above definition, the patient receives professional care, that the patient receives quality care, that the patient receives transparent care, that the patient receives safe care, and that the dignity of the person of the patient is respected by healthcare service providers. So that's that for patient rights. Then if we now talk about the types or the sources of patients' rights, we'll be talking about international covenants. In fact, before that, if we talk about sources, you can be talking about the WHO Constitution. The word you can't talk here, I told us last week that you cannot discuss health and not mention WHO. So you talk about, that's international covenants, talk about WHO, you talk about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you talk about the Geneva Declaration, the Hippocratic Oath. So There are a lot of international covenants, the Helsinki Declaration, the Lisbon Declaration. These are sources of patients' rights. Then you talk about national level acts of the National Assembly. You talk about the Constitution, because now take note of what I'm talking about here, the laws I'm mentioning, because you just mentioned a few on your regulations. To me, there were scanty. We could have gotten more, and there are indeed more, but I still commend your efforts. Talk about the Constitution, Patients' Bill of Rights, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, then the National Health Insurance Authority. Where did you place the National Health Act, which is more like when you talk of health in Nigeria today, health regulation, healthcare service delivery regulation by documents, that's the National Health Act. That's the number one. Once you remove the Constitution, the next document you are looking at is the National Health Act. So we have the Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, the National Health Act. We have the HIV and AIDS Anti-Discrimination Act 2014. We have the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshot Act 2017. These are at the federal level. There are other laws such as the Mental Health Act 2023. You talk about the National Insurance, National Health Insurance Authority, replacing the National Health Insurance Scheme. So National Health Insurance Authority Act 2023, or 2022 rather, replacing the National Health Insurance Scheme. Then at the state level, Lagos State will always lead and has always set good pace when it comes to acts and laws, state laws. You have persons living with HIV/AIDS laws of Lagos State, 2007. Then this year, okay, last year, this year, was it this year? Yes. Last year, the Rivers State government domesticated the compulsory treatment and care of gun wound victims act into their own equivalent for the states. Then you talk about professional sources. You have code of ethical conduct of medical professional, healthcare professionals, that of nurses are there, rules of professional conduct for nurses are there, the code of medical ethics are there. Then you have policies and regulations of government. Now, this professional ethics also includes the code of conduct for pharmacists, the code of conduct for lab scientists. They all have their professional ethics. You talk of policies and relevant government agencies. Now, that is where the Patient's Bill of Rights comes in. The Patient's Bill of Rights is not a law, it is a policy document. Then we have the standard minimum guideline for human rights of COVID-19 patients in treatment centers in Nigeria. That regulation came into existence in 2020 by the National Human Rights Commission. So those are a few examples of the laws and sources of patients' rights. Then we talk about the patients' rights that are applicable in Nigeria. So you have right to treatment in emergency situation. You can find this under Section 20 of the National Health Act. You can also find it under Section 1 of Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshots, Act 2017. You have rights to information on the nature of the patient's ailments, diagnostic procedures, available treatment options, benefits, costs, and risk and consequences associated with each treatment option. You also have a right to refuse treatment. These are provided under Section 23 of the National Health Act. Then you have rights to confidentiality of medical records, Section 26. You have right to obtain medical records, section 23A and B of the National Health Act. You have the right to decline or refuse treatment, section 23(1)D of the National Health Act. You have rights to terminate service against medical advice. That's section 20 of the Code of Medical Ethics. Now, you can go, first thing you need to understand is that as we speak, patients' rights are not in a single document. So have bits, that's why I took time to, how do I put it, collate them, arrange them, so that one can, if you say you are talking about patients' rights in Nigeria, you can see a listing of all the rights that the law guarantees to a patient. Then you have right to transparent billing, section 11 of Code of Medical Ethics. It is also provided for in the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have rights to privacy. That's section 11A of Code of Medical Ethics. It is also provided for in the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have right to respectful and dignified care. That is where the definition I explained earlier, that the patient's rights must also include a respect for the dignity of the person, of the patient. So we have right to respectful and dignified care, section 34A and 42 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. 34A talks about rights to dignity, then 42 talks about freedom from discrimination. So any form of disrespect to the person of the patient, including discrimination, either on the basis of his gender, the basis of his religion, the basis of his economic or political status in the society, any form of discrimination to the patient is an abuse of his right to dignified care. You also find this right under section 11E of the Code of Medical Ethics and as the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have a right to quality care under the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have a right to visitation under the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have a right to clean, safe, and secured healthcare environment. You have a right to religious observance. That's under the standard minimum guideline for human rights of COVID-19 patients in treatment centers in Nigeria. You have a right to lay complaint if dissatisfied with the way you were treated in healthcare facility. So that right comes under section 30 of the National Health Act and also the Patient's Bill of Rights. You have a right to informed consent. Very key, we have talked about informed consent over and over again. So that's about that when you talk about patients' rights. Now, you talked about medical malpractice, which some people alternate as medical negligence, which is basically the failure of a healthcare professional to exercise relevant or due skill and care. Now, there is an irreducible minimum standard of care that is required. So once the healthcare professional goes below that standard of care required at his level, he is negligent. So the standard of care that is required from, say, a fresh doctor from medical school who is doing his housemanship in a hospital, it is not the same degree of care that is required from a consultant practitioner who has practiced medicine for 30 or 40 years. There is something that the doctor will do, and it will not be considered negligence or malpractice because at his level, he is not required to exercise such degree and care. Now, that does not mean that anything goes. At his level, if he has exercised the level of or standard of care that a doctor of his standing is expected to deliver, you cannot hold him to have been liable. provided that whatever he did is the acceptable standard across board, such that if you brought a doctor of his standing from India, a doctor of his standing from maybe UK, a doctor of his standing from the US, and the doctor will do the same thing, you cannot hold him liable. But where a consultant now comes to do the same thing that a house officer could do and go free, that consultant will be held liable. So medical malpractice or medical negligence, even though I usually, how do I put it, differentiate between medical negligence. Medical negligence is actually the failure to exercise reasonable degree of skill and care required of a professional of your standing. Whereas on the other hand, medical malpractice has a criminal element of willfulness, deliberately causing harm to a patient in, how do I put it now? Medical malpractice is deliberately causing harm to a patient and at the same time reducing the standard. So if you deliberately flouted the codes of your professional ethics as a healthcare practitioner, that is medical malpractice. The deliberate flouting of the health of the code of medical ethics to cause a patient pain or harm is medical malpractice. Failure, skill and care that is required of a doctor of your standing is medical negligence. I hope you got the differentiation. It's important. Some people use medical malpractice and medical negligence interchangeably, thinking that medical malpractice is the same as medical negligence. Now, example, where a doctor is supposed to give 10 milligrams, administer 10 milligrams of an injection, he mistakenly administers 12 or 8. That is medical negligence. He did not set out to cause harm. It was a mistake. But where a doctor deliberately harvests an organ of a patient in the course of conducting a surgery, that is medical malpractice. Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Yes, sir, that's very clear, very clear.
I need to understand
clear.
that
Yes, sir.
malpractice has element of criminality attached to it, element of willfulness, knowing that this action is going to cause the patient harm. Whereas medical negligence is basically mistake, omission, medical error. The doctor did not plan to do it. The doctor did not set out to do it, but it happened. And a lot of factors can lead to medical negligence. Example, fatigue. Our healthcare professionals are overstretched here, where you are supposed to have maybe 10 doctors manning a hospital or a ward. You have 3, 4 doctors doing the job of 10 doctors. Or you have the same set of doctors, they will work in hospital A, they will work in hospital B, they will work in hospital C, all at the same time. Now, the way their job is structured is that when you do morning here today, you are supposed to go home. If you did morning shift here today, you are supposed to go home and rest so that tomorrow you come back fresh. But he's done with morning shift here. He rushes to another hospital to do night shift there. He rushes to another hospital to do afternoon shift. In doing that, he is causing a lot of stress to himself. One, he may, in the course of running up and down, mistake patient in hospital A for patient in hospital B. It is possible. I don't know whether some of you read the story of a doctor in Imo State. He died last month. Last month was September, yes. He died in September. The guy had been on call back to back and applied for permission to go and rest. And that permission was not granted. So he was still where he is working, the guy slumped and died. That is stress. So fatigue can cause medical negligence, but fatigue cannot cause medical malpractice, because for someone to commit medical malpractice, the person has to think it through before, knowing that this action I'm going to take, it is going to cause harm, it is going to cause pain to these patients. Then evidence gathering. If you have your questions, please, you can begin to put them together. Now, evidence gathering is where special skill is required. Why is there need for special skill in evidence gathering? Medical malpractice litigation is not easy anywhere in the world, not just in Nigeria. It is more difficult in Nigeria because it is an emerging area of law, both in theory and in practice. So our system is not that open yet, even though there are plethora of laws that should make it easy. We talked about the patient having right to his medical record, but in practice, what often happens is that where a patient requests for his medical record, you find out that the doctors or the hospital quickly doctors that medical record before giving it out. So as a patient, how do you gather relevant and credible evidence, knowing that what is going to happen, your case is going to be determined by the evidence presented in court? That evidence, most of them are going to come from the hospital, basically your medical record. So how do you gather evidence as a patient? Number one is keeping journal keeping by the patient. In fact, there's a case that was reported to me, that was on Wednesday, right? Yes, Tuesday, Wednesday. That was on Monday. Now, what happened? A pregnant woman, went for antenatal. She's 6 months pregnant, went for antenatal care, and the doctor made a prescription for her. She complained of feeling feverish and all that, and the doctor made a prescription for her, and she took the medication, and the ailment became worse as she took the medication, pains all over her body. And this was the third time she was giving birth. She was becoming pregnant and giving birth. What happened was that the medication she took actually induced labor. And not knowing that her body is reacting to the medication, she kept taking that medication until she had full-blown labor and was rushed to hospital, and she delivered that child premature at 6 months, and the baby died. Now, that is gross negligence. Why is it gross negligence? Because the doctor she came to see should know ordinarily that this medication he's giving this woman is going to induce labor. So that's prescription error on the part of the doctor. Then secondly, the doctor, knowing that this is wrong to have made the prescription not on the prescription sheets, not in the woman's file, but just carried a plain sheet of paper like this and scribbled and gave the woman to go and get the medicine or the drugs. The question now is, how do we get evidence? So if you go to hospital as a patient's caregiver, because sometimes the patient might not be in a state of journaling. You keep your own journal, starting with the name of the doctor that attended to you or that is attending to you part-time. It is your right to know their name. It is your right to know the name of the nurse, because even this case I just shared with you people, I asked the woman's husband, what is the name of the doctor? He said his wife does not know the name. So that's where you start from. If you want to make a complaint now, how do you complain? Against who are you complaining? So I need to, first of all, know the name of the doctor that is taking care of you in your evidence gathering. Not just the doctor, the healthcare professional that is attending to you part-time. If it is a nurse, know his or her name. If it's a lab scientist, know his or her name. If it's an anesthesiologist, know his or her name. Secondly, you need to note the shift. Was it morning shift? Was it afternoon shift? Was it night shift? At what time did whatever you are complaining of take place? You need to establish this so that you need to know the dates that the incident occurred. So that if you can't remember the name or the shift, if you remember the date and you remember that it was in the morning that you came, the hospital work schedule or timetable or duty roster will show that, okay, on the morning of Monday, 23rd October 2023, it was Dr. SYZ that was on duty. So you keep your personal journal. 1, 2, learn to engage or ask questions. Engage the doctors, engage the nurses, ask questions. What it will do for you is, firstly, it will save you some risk because the doctors can forget. And when they forget, the question you ask them will jolt them back to reality. It will remind them what they are supposed to do. But how can you ask question if you do not even know what question to ask? So, okay, I think I've shared this story in this class, but not your set. I am certain it's not your set. I was nursing an uncle in the hospital. That should be sometime in 2010. And a doctor came to administer injection on him. After drawing the injection from the bottle, I noticed bubbles of air in the syringe. I noticed it, air bubbles in the syringe. Now, they are supposed to dispel that air because it can actually kill. If that air is injected and it gets into your artery or vein, it can kill. So I kept quiet and I was observing the doctor. When he was about to administer the injection, I said, excuse me, sir, please, what do you understand about embolism and embolysis? Now the guy was shocked. He turned and looked at me. That question is not a question everybody asks you on the streets. For someone to ask you that question, the person knows 1 or 2 things about what you're doing. So at that moment, the doctor slowly dispelled the air from the syringe and needle before he administered the injection. Now, I could ask that question because I knew. What if I did not know? So beyond getting certificates, we are empowering you with this knowledge so that you can take action. We are not saying go and confront doctors. We are not saying go and disrespect healthcare professionals. No, far from it. But we are saying that you should engage because you now know you have been empowered with knowledge. Ask questions. Number 3, how do you get your medical record intact? Where you suspect fraud, where you suspect foul play, where you suspect medical negligence, or where you intend to take action, promptly apply for the medical record. Now, Do not raise alarm. Do not raise any suspicion that you intend to sue the hospital or you intend to take any action against the doctor. Once they have an idea of that, I am telling you from experience, practical on the field experience, once they have wind of that, that medical record is going to be doctored. But as soon as something happens, as soon as the person, the treatment is completed, even if not, intermittently, it is your document, it is your property. Intermittently, while even the treatment is on, you can't be applying for your medical records. You apply, you keep it, you apply, you keep it. If anything goes wrong, you can now present it as an evidence. But if you wait for your patient or your brother or your sibling or your relative to die or suffer harm, after which you come to the hospital and threaten the doctors, threaten the nurses, threaten the CMD, and you now come back and say you want to apply for your medical record. One, they are going to delay it. After delaying it, they are going to give you a doctored medical record showing that everything was done perfectly. If you take that record anywhere, as they are looking at it, say, yeah, you did this, you're supposed to do this, it is done, you're supposed to do this, it is done. Then at the end of the day, you will discover that nothing will come out of it. So that is that about evidence gathering. Then we talk about medical malpractice, proof of medical negligence or medical malpractice. You mentioned 4 elements to prove, but I want to correct number 1. You mentioned duty. It is not duty, please. It is duty of care, not just duty. Note it, very, very important. You must prove that the doctor, I know you explained it as a duty of care in your explanation. Next time, when you are writing, if you wrote that for me in exam, I will give you half mark. Or even quarter mark. It is duty of care. You need to prove that the doctor owes you duty of care. Then you need to prove that the doctor is in breach of that duty of care. You need to prove that you suffered damages, you suffered harm as a result of the breach of duty of care. Then you need to prove that the harm you suffered, that there is a link between the harm you suffered and the breach of duty of care, which we call causation. So you need to prove these 4. If these 4 elements are proved, medical negligence case is established and damages will be awarded in favor of the victim or the claimant. Now, what are defenses to medical negligence? But I must also say, beyond this, let's talk about remedies. Let's talk about seeking remedies generally. So we have number 1, administrative redress. If you're seeking redress for medical negligence or malpractice, we have administrative redress. This is where you write to the healthcare, the leadership or management of the hospital or healthcare facility that caused the harm. You write to the management. Now, every hospital, government hospitals especially, every government hospital has what they call Servicom desk. It is a complaint box. Now, know that complaint is your right. You have a right to complain. So the Servicom personnel in the hospital, they need to attend to you as of right. They are not doing you a favor. They are not helping you. They are doing their job. They are doing what they are supposed to do. In fact, what they are paid for to do, which is to receive your complaints. So you write to the CMD of the hospital through the Servicom office in the hospital. There's always a Servicom number there. Even though in some government hospitals, you just see the desk, there's nobody sitting there. But there's a provision. I can tell you that in government hospitals, there's a provision for Servicom officer. So you write to the Servicom officer or the CMD, the management of the hospital, you lay your complaints. After that, some hospitals might take action immediately and invite you or investigate what you have complained about. If you are satisfied with their investigation and whatever action they take, it ends there. But if you feel dissatisfied, you can step it up to what we call professional redress. At that point, you will write your complaint to Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. Now, you need to know this. Medical and Dental Council does not regulate hospitals. They regulate doctors. Nursing and Midwifery Council does not regulate hospitals. They regulate nurses. And the same thing with their relevant bodies. For example, the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, it is the association for pharmacists. It has nothing to do with hospitals. So it is their members that they regulate. So for doctors, you complain to Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. Now, your complaint should come in an affidavit form, meaning that you go to court and swear to an affidavit stating the facts of what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. Then you submit it to the Medical and Dental Council. They read it. After reading it, there is merit in your case, then they set up an investigative panel that will look at it. The panel will also write to the doctor, telling the doctor, this is a complaint this man has brought. So the doctor is expected to respond to your complaints. After the doctor responds, then a tribunal will they still investigate and there is merit, a tribunal will be set up and the doctor will appear before the tribunal to defend himself against your complaint. You as a complainant or a patient, a victim, you have a right to engage the service of a legal practitioner. The same thing is obtainable to the doctor. The doctor also has a right to engage the services of a legal practitioner. In fact, they have their own tribunal procedure. The way we have high court rules, they also have their own procedure, rules of procedure at the Medical and Dental Council Tribunal. They have their own rule of procedure of what happens there and how proceedings are conducted before the tribunal. So, having said that, if you are dissatisfied still, or even while the tribunal is ongoing, you can file a suit in court, which we call the legal redress. We've talked about administrative, we've talked about professional redress, now we're talking about legal redress. Now, legal redress is twofold. One is the criminal aspect, the other is the civil aspect. Now, the criminal aspect is where there is a clear case of medical negligence leading to loss of organ, leading to maybe life harm to the person, which is still in some sense loss of organ. Maybe an injection is administered and the patient's leg is paralyzed. Have you seen some people that were paralyzed as a result of polio injection? Have you seen anybody like that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a lot of them, particularly up north. So, cases of murder where somebody dies as a result of medical malpractice and you suspect that it was deliberate act, murder, or manslaughter, if it was an accident. Now, what happens in such a situation is that you report to the police. The police will investigate the case. After investigating the case, the police will, if there is established a prima facie case, the police will charge the doctor and try him under our criminal law jurisprudence. But if, on the other hand, it's not a case of medical malpractice, it is negligence, you can file a civil action, and claim damages. Now, I think section 13 or section 6, either of the two, of the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshot Act 2017 provides for compensation. The High Court now has the power to compensate where somebody who is supposed to take action to save a victim of gunshot stands by and watches the person die. So you can come under that provision and get compensation. That is for redress. We have the administrative, we have the administrative, we have the professional, and we have the legal redress. I think we have covered basically all we have for today. If there are any questions, you are at liberty to ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. That has been elaborately done. Thank you a whole lot. Okay, so mentees, over to you. Are there questions for our mentor today? He's done serious justice to this topic. I'm impressed, like I'm wowed. Thank you so much, sir. That was really, really nicely done. Thank you for your feedback as well on the presentation by our mentees and their.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Very nicely done. I think I've learned one thing. Henceforth, I'll have my journals when going to the hospitals. I want to know every doctor's name so that I can protect myself.
No, you don't.
Okay, so
you don't even need a journal to know the doctor's name. You see, ordinarily, the doctor is supposed to volunteer the information. The right thing to do, the standard practice is the first time the doctor is getting in contact with you, the doctor is supposed to introduce himself by saying, my name, okay, for example, let me use myself. My name is Dr. Ebenezer. Then I'm supposed to tell you how many years experience I have. Let's say we are having a gynecological case or a cardiac, heart-related case. I will say that I have been a consultant cardiologist for the past 15 or 20 years. Now, what that does is it reassures you, the patient, that you are in good hands. Do you understand it? That you are in good hands. You are not dealing with a quack. You are in safe hands. So the doctor ordinarily should introduce himself to you. But where the doctor fails or forgets to, ordinarily the doctors are supposed to have their name tags. Every healthcare personnel in the hospital environment is supposed to have his name tag on or ID card. The name tag is actually supposed to be on his chest. So as you see him, you call him by the name. Oh, Dr. Stephen, good morning, sir. That's how it is done in other claims. But here, where the doctor forgets, I don't want to say refuse, because I cannot imagine a doctor refusing to tell the patient his or her name. So it is where the doctor forgets. You can politely ask, good morning, doctor, please, may I know your name? It's not when he now says, my name is Dr. Stephen, you now bring out your journal, Dr. Stephen. No, it's not done that way. Now, you are also not going into the hospital for the sake of expecting trouble. Your journal is actually supposed to be just with you, just write. It's not, okay, this thing you are doing, I have my journal though, okay, then let me, no, it's not so. You will be putting the doctor, you'll be making the doctor to be on the edge. He will be walking and be looking back. Who is prosecuting me? They want to prosecute me. No, he won't be relaxed to do his work. So your journal is supposed to be your private stuff. When you are done for the day, you sit down, you document, you write what you have seen, what happened today. It would actually be just for fun. You know, white men document everything. So you can actually document and write a book on your hospital experience. Not necessarily you are going for fault-finding adventure. No, it is not what it is. You are not setting out for fault-finding.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much. I know sometimes I've been to a hospital where asked of a doctor's name, and the doctor said, "You're here to receive treatment, not to ask of my name."
Now
Anyway, moving to the first question.
that is very, very wrong. Any doctor
Okay,
that
sir.
does that, firstly, is unprofessional. At that point, you can tell the doctor that you have a right to know his name because it's part of your right to information. At that point, if you politely ask a doctor for his name and he responds the way you just did now, at that point, you have a right to know his name. You can tell him, sir, please, that you have a right to know his name because he's the one attending to you. You should know the person who is attending to you. In fact, at that point, you should go beyond his name to ask for his qualification because you also have a right to know his area of specialization, not as per whether he graduated with 2-1 or 2-2 or the university he attended. No, you have a right to know his area of specialization and the experience he has in that field at that point.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So I want to move into the first question we have from our mentees. This question says, "Sir, a medical practitioner, a medical malpractice that left a permanent injury on a child, is this a civil or criminal claim that would be raised?"
Now, what is the nature of the injury? That is one. Two, I talked about the differentiation between malpractice and the negligence, which sometimes could be intent. At the negligence level, the doctor did not set out cause harm. Now, that is not a defense for negligence. The doctor can still be sued for criminal this. It is always better redress to be concluded. It makes your case in court easier and faster. If the doctors, let's say, the doctor goes through a trial before the Medical and Dental Council and he is sanctioned, maybe he's given 6 months suspension or his license is withdrawn, what you just need to do is to compile records of proceedings before the tribunal and attach it in your pleading and file your case in courts. And now plead that this same thing you are talking about, his professional colleagues have already found him guilty and sanctioned him with 6 months suspension. At that point, it becomes easier for the court to say, oh, if your professional colleagues who are your doctor friends have already found you guilty, it means that this thing is really wrong that you did. And the court will just pronounce in your favor. But sometimes, because people are not well guided, they out of rush spoil their case. So it is always better to be patient for this to be concluded. Now, you also need to know the time, the limitation of action. When you talk about limitation, the medical negligence cases, patients' rights violation cases should be filed within 3 years from the time the, from the time the patient got to know about that negligence. For example, the woman I spoke last week about, the woman whose one of her kidneys was harvested by a quack doctor somewhere in Plateau State. It has been in the news. I told you people to read it up. I didn't get your response except one person who responded to that assignment. Now, the act may have occurred 2, 3, 4 years before, but from the time the patient became aware, the patient has 3 years within which to file his or her case. So it means that we don't know when that kidney incident happened, but let's assume it happened 2 years ago. If the woman gets to know now, she has 3 years from now to file her action. So you must also bear that in mind so that you do not say You just have to wait ad infinitum for the tribunal to conclude their case before you file your own. So, depending on the nature of the injury, you can file for civil or for criminal redress. Thank you. Next question, if there is.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to go into the next question quickly for time. Also, is a woman in labor under is a woman in labor under an emergency condition? Yes. Can damages be recovered if any injury occurs?
When you say if any injury occurs, how? You see, we must know how to frame our questions. A woman in labor is under extreme emergency. I talked about things that constitute emergency last week. So labor is emergency, cardiac arrest is emergency, accident is emergency, snake bite, scorpion sting, and all that. They are emergencies. But if somebody is having malaria, now also note that malaria is in degrees. If somebody is having just fever and walks into the hospital by himself, you must also note that a person who is having high blood pressure, it is emergency. That patient might not have fever. That patient might not even have any symptom. That patient might walk into the hospital. But because the doctors have been trained, as soon as they see the patient and hear from the patient, they know what to do. They know that this is extreme emergency. So there have been people who do not show any physical sign of ailment, of headache, or fever, which are the common ones. We can say, okay, he's feeling feverish, and you begin to use cold water with towel, a damp towel, and use it to rub his body to reduce the cold. Now, that is not medication. What you are supposed to do is to take the person to hospital. You might get there, and it will be that the person's blood pressure is very, very high. The doctors know what to do immediately to normalize it, or at least to bring it down. There are people who have walked into the hospital by themselves, and the hospital, in all honesty, I'm not talking about fraud now, in all honesty, the hospital say, no, you will not go back. Even this woman I mentioned, I was with her husband yesterday. Her husband came to see me. Yesterday, he said the day his wife went to hospital, when the hospital saw her and her state, the hospital said, no, madam, you cannot go back again today. She had to call her husband to bring her clothes and other items. So a woman in labor is a case of emergency. Now, depending now on the degree of dilation and the progress of the labor, one challenge or one recurrent report we receive is that when these women get to the hospital, because the doctors or nurses have attended to too many cases of delivery and labor, the woman is saying, I am in labor, and the doctor is saying, madam, just don't disturb anybody, calm down. I will attend to you. You are not, the labor is not serious. It's the patient that is feeling it in her body. So what determines emergency is not just what we see with our physical eyes. So labor is emergency. Accidents leading to loss of blood, you may not, so there are some accident cases that the victim might not be bleeding physically or visibly, but there is internal bleeding, and that is more dangerous. So accident is emergency. What they are supposed to do is to first of all run a scan on that patient to know how safe he is internally. You may not see physical wound, but there is bleeding internally, and that kills. So accident is emergency, bites is emergency, heart attack is emergency, and so forth and so on. So can we have the next question?
Sir, so the next question reads, is a medical survey result also seen as medical evidence? Is a medical survey result also seen as medical evidence?
If I understood your question, is a medical survey result also seen as medical evidence?
Medical evidence, yes, sir.
Now, it depends on the context. Here we have to situate, it's not a yes and no answer. It is a contextual answer. We have to situate it in the right context. It can be yes in a situation, it can be no. If you want to prove that so and so element is prevalent to people in this area, a report, a survey, a study that has been carried out can serve as admissible evidence to show that there is prevalence of this kind of illness in people living in a certain region, living in a certain area. Do you understand it? Now, that is not conclusive to say that where you have a specific case in the hospital and you find a suit, you have to go and bring a medical a study, because surveys are a product of research studies, right? So it's not conclusive that where you have a case, you must go and look for a research study result to come and show. Now, you must understand that one of the rules or cardinal principles of evidence in court is admissibility, or relevance rather. One of the rules guiding admissibility of evidence in court is relevance. So the evidence you're bringing, how relevant is it to the case? Or you just want to show them that you have gone through this class and you know how to gather evidence? No, it is relevance. If the evidence is relevant, if the medical report, if the medical survey is relevant, you bring it. But where it is not relevant, you have no need to bring it. Next question, please.
Okay, so thank you so much, sir. The next question reads, is evidence gathering strictly for legal purposes? Is evidence gathering strictly for legal purposes?
Not necessarily for legal purposes. You can turn on your videos. In fact, everybody just turn on your videos. If we ask you to speak, or if you know you are supposed to speak, you speak. So now, evidence gathering is not necessarily for legal purposes. I just mentioned here that it's unfortunate we don't document here in Africa. It is unfortunate we do not document, but they document. So for documentation purposes, you were admitted in hospital XYZ. These are your experiences while you were in the hospital. You can write a book with that. So evidence gathering is not necessarily for a litigation purpose. Now, I have to stress this. You don't go with the mind of something must go wrong. Don't go with a mind of I am preparing for war. These people are wicked. They are going to kill my brother or my sister. So let me just ambush them with this so that if anything happens before they change or doctor the result, I will do this. Okay, they just took my lights. Let me turn on the generator. Just give me 2 minutes.
Okay. So while we wait for our mentor, if we have any live questions, please signify, just send a direct message or put a message in the chat box so that we can have them quickly. I think we've taken 2 live messages already. Okay, I think his power is back on, so that we could, well, our class is almost done for today. So if you have any more live questions, kindly post them in the
Okay.
chat box so that he can have them.
I am back.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So you don't go with the mind of something must go wrong. Evidence that it could be for your personal consumption. You even went there, everything went well as planned, and you occasionally, people do, have you seen people who keep diaries and document every day their activity? It is the same thing. You just journal, you just document your experience and what happens. But where it now comes handy is that something has gone wrong and you need to prove or seek redress. You bring it. So you are not setting out with the mindset of, okay, let me get this in case they do this. No. Evidence gathering is not necessarily for litigation. No, it is not. But it will help you if litigation, if the need for litigation arises.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The last question on the list here, subject to if we get more questions, it reads, what is the place of e-health and health tech in curbing healthcare and abuse and medical malpractice?
What is the place of what?
What is the place of e-health and health tech in curbing healthcare abuse and medical malpractice?
Okay, awesome.
What is the place of e-health?
What is the place of e-health and health tech in curbing healthcare abuse
and medical malpractice?
Abuse and medical malpractice? That is a fantastic question. Okay, now, technology, when we talk tech, are you aware that CCTV camera is tech? Are you aware?
Mantis, I believe that's a question, please. Can we answer? Yes, sir.
I said, are you aware that CCTV camera, that it is tech, is technology? Are you aware?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, awesome. Now, there are some hospitals that is equipped round with CCTV camera, not just externally, even within the wards, that the CMD or whoever is in charge of the director can sit in his office and he's seeing everything that is happening in the ward. Now, the mere fact that a doctor or a nurse knows that he is being watched will come like up to 50%, if not more, of cases of physical abuse to start with. Do you understand it? The mere fact that there is a CCTV camera here, whether it is functional or not, provided the doctor or the nurse is aware that there is a CCTV camera installed in the hospital ward. It happens even in offices, in a supermarket, anywhere there is camera, you see that people intend to behave well. And you also see that even the people who go to steal in such areas, they'll want to avoid the camera picking their face or whatever. So technology can help in great way. Two is issue of feedback. We also do not make good use of feedback in this area. Ordinarily, the standard practice should be that the patient should give a feedback. So the hospital provides a phone number, the hospital provides an email address saying, once you are done consulting with our doctor, give us a feedback. So when the patient writes a feedback, the doctor attended to me in this way, the doctor attended to me in this way, this, that will also help in curbing cases of abuse. Then feedback would also be a complaint. If a hospital begins to receive repeated complaints about one thing recurring, maybe in their billing, someone in this class now knows that he has a right to transparent billing, and a healthcare professional wants to rip him off, and he raises, he escalates it. Another person escalates it, a third person escalates it. The hospital is bound to look into it. The next thing they are going to do is to check their staff, check their system, maybe run a training, and also maybe put out disciplinary measure to punish whoever is found guilty of such. So you now see that feedback, it could be through technology, it could be through internet, it could be through WhatsApp, it could be through any means, but it provides a means of reducing medical negligence and malpractice or fraud. Thank you very much. I believe that answers the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very well. Very nicely done, sir. Okay, so we have questions are still coming in. So please,
I like
these are
it.
his last. I love it so much too. So, sir, next question goes. So, sir, does a quack doctor have the duty of care imposed on medical practitioners? In the first place, he's not a doctor. In a situation where he's negligent or commits malpractice, would he be said to have that duty of care imposed by law?
Take your last question. In the event he's negligent, what happens?
In the first place, he's not a doctor. In a situation where he is negligent or commits malpractice, would he be said to have that duty of care by law?
Okay, now let us understand what quack is. When it comes to medical malpractice, there are two categories. There are persons who are not certified doctors. Who are not certified doctors. A third time, who are not certified doctors. By that I mean, the person has gone through medical school, wrote the exams, passed, and was issued a medical certificate as a doctor to practice, a license to practice medicine in Nigeria. There are persons who have gone through medical school, they have the knowledge, but they didn't pass the exam as at the time they wrote. They have also not gone back to repeat the exams, but because they have been taught these things and they have the knowledge, and in fact, while they were attending school, people know that they were in medical school, but people do not know that they were not licensed to practice. Such a person is a fake doctor. The person parading himself as a doctor is fake because he does not have the license to practice medicine. And that is a criminal offense. Now, there are people also who, by reason of association, having a parent who is a doctor. In fact, there was a case in Ghana. A guy was serving in hospital, not as a nurse, not as a doctor, but just being a man assisting in doing things in the theater to do surgery. And he was operating people until he was busted. So that person is both fake and quack. Now, in medical practice, your license is supposed to be renewed periodically, your license to practice. For us in law, if you do not pay your annual practicing fee, even though you are a lawyer, you have no right of audience in courts until you pay your bar practicing fee. And that your bar practicing fee must be paid on or before 31st of March of every year. So if on the 2nd of April, you have not paid your bar practicing fee, and you come to court, the court will treat you as a fake lawyer because you have no right of audience. You are not supposed to be practicing law that year if you have not paid your bar practicing fee before March 31st. So even though you have been given your seal and all that, once it is 1st of April and you have not paid your bar practicing fee, you are not considered a litigation lawyer in Nigeria. Because even if you paid it after, it has no use. The time frame within which you are supposed to pay has elapsed. In fact, we actually have yearly what we call practice license. Once you pay your bar practicing, you are supposed to be given a practice license for the year. But in some jurisdictions, it's stopping now. The same thing is applicable to medicine. As a healthcare, as a medical doctor, you also pay and renew your practice license for the year. So failure to renew your practice license, any medical service you deliver where your practice license is invalid, you are considered a quack doctor. Did you get that? Any medical service you deliver while your practice license is invalid, you are considered a quack doctor. So what it means is that at all material time, you have to ensure that you have the license to practice, not just a license to practice, but a license to practice in this particular category. For example, your license as a consultant is not the same license you use as a house officer. Now, your license to carry out surgery is not the same. In fact, you are even a quack where you delve into an area of medicine you are not qualified for. The mistake we make is that when we go to hospital, anybody we see in white lab coat, we call him or her doctor. Fine and good. If you are a pediatrician, by your training, you are supposed to look after children, babies, and you now delve into gynecology to go and take delivery, you are quack. You find yourself in the theater to carry out surgery. When you are not a surgeon, you are quack. You find yourself consulting on kidney-related issues or liver-related matter. At that point, you are quack. Even though you are a qualified doctor, but you are practicing in an area of medicine that you are not certified to practice. Is that clear enough?
Yes, I think that's clear. Yes. I like how well you brought it to the law because it's a very, I love this. I wish law would actually adopt some of these things you said about the medical practitioner in regards to how well they declare people quacks. It's really, really interesting.
Part of the questions, part of the cross-examination questions we ask doctors on why they are in the witness box is to put it to them that they have not paid their practicing license. They have not paid for their practice license. If you say you have paid, produce it. Because he who asserts must prove. So as at this material, as at the time you carried out this surgery, your license was invalid. Once the person says yes, he's in, he's a quack doctor. As at that material time, because he had no license to carry out that surgery. Even though he's a certified medical practitioner. So I need us to get this degree of quackery and fake doctors. There are people who are not doctors, who are not certified at all. There are even people who have no knowledge of medicine, who just Google or read up something and start parading themselves as doctors. There are people who in league with doctors, either persons who went to medical school and dropped out, but they already have the knowledge. They now start parading themselves as doctors. They go to one remote village and start practicing. And people call them doctor. Whereas in the real sense, they are not certified at all. There are also the category of persons who their licenses have expired and they have not renewed it, and they are practicing medicine, they have no right to practice once your license expires until you renew it.
Okay,
Next question.
sir. So the final question we can take for today because of time, the question reads, does a patient have the right to ask to be transferred to another hospital? Does a patient have a right
Not
to
just
ask to
that,
be transferred?
not just that, you have a right to discontinue medical service. You have a right to be transferred to another hospital. Let me state it. Now, we talked about patient's autonomy. You decide at what point who touches your body for any reason. Now, if you feel you no longer feel secure there, if you feel that this hospital has compromised, will compromise, or is likely to compromise, or that they do not have parade the degree of healthcare professionals they have advertised or represented to you to parade, you have a right to ask for transfer. Now, the healthcare, what they are supposed to do is to write a referral note to the next hospital. 1. 2, they can discharge you and give you a form to sign that you are discharged against medical advice. It's either you are discharging yourself, then go to the next hospital and continue treatment, or they transfer you from their own hospital to the next hospital. Now, I need us to understand that part
Is it just me or
of medical fraud or healthcare fraud is making a representation out. For example, you run a and you say you have a plastic surgeon in your team. Your hospital has a plastic surgeon. In fact, he's a consultant plastic surgeon. Whereas it is somebody, one boy, who is still learning plastic surgery somewhere, or who is just out of school. He's a plastic surgeon, but he's not a consultant. He's just fresh from the school, but the representation you made to your patient is that you have a consultant plastic surgeon. Now, that is healthcare fraud, because you are going to charge that patient based on the experience of a consultant that is coming to carry out the surgery, and you end up giving him the service of a fresher from the School of Medicine. So we need to understand that too, that there are intricacies and nuances in healthcare fraud. So as a patient, you have a right to discontinue your treatment. We talked about, you have a right to even refuse treatment, provided you are of sound mind and you are in your lucid state and you are an adult as at the time you are taking that decision, and the hospital have explained to you the far-reaching implication or consequences of such decision. They are at liberty to discharge you, but they will get you to sign a form that you discharged against medical advice. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ebenezer. It's been an awesome time. This is one particular class I'm so happy I was in. But before we go, I think we should do one of my favorite parts. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our picture time. So I know we have our cameras on already. So we'll just smile for the camera, and Mr. Dennis will do his magic to get us some amazing pictures. So just, yes, let's breathe. It's been an amazing class because we've learned a whole lot. So let us smile.
You will take the pictures, I will see them. Why?
Oh, so sorry, sir. I promise you will see this particular one. Please, so sorry, sir.
Okay.
So sorry, sir. Okay, so please give a smile that makes Mr. Ebenezer know that he did justice to today's class. It's been perfect. It's been perfect. So come on, give that smile when you know your mentor has done a good job. Okay, Mr. Dennis, have you got some pictures, please?
Okay, thank you. I will need you guys to send me feedback. Then Mr. Moderator, create a feedback form for me, put it on
Okay,
the
sir.
group, let each student fill a feedback. That is for me. We talked
Okay,
about
sir.
feedback today. So I need to know the areas I also need to improve on. I need to know the areas I'm getting well, and I need to strengthen it. So that is how growth comes. But if you come and say, we must do it as it was in the beginning, it's now ever shall be, war without end, you stagnate. And that's a problem we have in our nation. We think we know it all, and we see feedback as a threat. It shouldn't be. Feedback is a tool of growth if properly used. So I need my feedback going forward. After every class, you drop the feedback form and everybody fills it and send it to me. Thank you very much. And my
Okay.
assignments, I gave an assignment last week. I said you people should read up the case of the lady that was taken to the hospital and rejected, Metama Hospital, and rejected. It has been in the news. I mentioned the case of the boy whose intestine was stolen. Small intestine was stolen in the hospital in Lagos. I said you should read it up. I mentioned the case of the woman whose kidney was stolen in Jos, Plateau State. One of her kidneys was harvested. And finally, I am adding the case of Ese. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, the Jehovah's Witness case. So I will post it with the citation on the WhatsApp group, a sermon against Dr. Fire. So read it up. Let me have your opinions on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
This
sir.
class
Thank
is
you.
supposed to be practical and engaging. So if you stumble on
Yes.
any medical negligence issue that is on the front burner, bring it up. Don't just wait till Sunday, we come and discuss and you go. It's supposed to be engaging. So thank you and have a
Okay.
blessed week. Only one person sent in her answer, Stella, Mr. Stella, Esther Victor. Yes, Esther Victor. That's the only person that sent in her answer. So I am expecting, how many are we in this class? We should be 11 people, right? We should be 8 or 9 participants, right? We have, how many mentees do we have in all?
Mr. Dennis?
How many mentees do we have?
Okay, I think we want to cross-check that information quickly.
So that I know the number of scripts I'm expecting.
Okay, sir. That
Okay,
information we furnished. Okay.
We have 11, sir.
Not participants, mentees, minus
Yes.
GC staff.
Yes,
and
there are
myself.
11 mentees. Yes, sir. 11 mentees.
11 mentees, awesome. So I will be expecting 10 responses on or before Saturday. Let your, not on Sunday next week. If you are coming on Sunday, you are late. On or before Saturday, latest Saturday, 12 noon, let me have your answer to the assignment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So, mentees, you have your work cut out for you. Let's have that case on the Metama hospital saga really through and do as our mentor has said we should do. It's very, very important so you can understand. Also, thank you, sir. With regards to feedback, we'll surely put that into practice immediately and you get feedback from today's class. That's how much you can take on today's class. Thank you so much for being with us, sir. To all our mentees, thank you for a phenomenal time. Let's not forget, we must make our classes engaging. We have an amazing mentor who does that and takes his time to make sure we're understanding the course or the discourse for the day. So till Sunday, And also for the 10 people who are meant to send in their assignments, so you send that. See you next week for another amazing time with JIIPC and learning about health tech and law. I'm Gosam Kamaloni, your moderator for today. Thank you to JIIPC. Thank you to Mr. Dennis, who was on the call throughout. Have an amazing Sunday and amazing week ahead. Goodbye and good evening.
Thank you. Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.